Hello, everybody, and welcome to Growth Marketing for Martians. I am your host, as always, Jeff Lambert. I'm joined by Rogelio Rodriguez, and today we're going to be talking about sales training and the importance of building up a legitimate, thought-out program. And we have a special guest with us today who can really give us some great information as to working towards this goal.
Thank you very much, Jeff. I'm Rogelio Rodriguez, and I am excited to have our guest, my friend, and also a great mentor of mine, Carlos Garrido. He's the co-founder and CEO of Absolute Sales Development at a Sandler training company here in Miami. He has more than 20 years of international consulting, coaching, and business development experience. And he's also served as Senior Director of Business Development for AstraZeneca. And he started his career at PricewaterhouseCoopers as a CPA and investment banker. Welcome, Carlos.
Hey, thanks, Rod. Nice to see you and Jeffrey. Thanks for inviting me on today.
Absolutely. Now, Carlos, I had a really interesting time reading up on your background. You've certainly worked with a lot of industries, a lot of diverse individuals over the course of your career. One thing that jumped out at me in your bio, you had this overriding principle listed where you said, step one, get the right people on the bus. Can you explain to us what you mean by that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we stole it. I mean, I stole this from Jim Collins, and you know, anybody that hasn't read it, you know, you need to. That's an important principle. Get the right people on the bus is the first step, because it's people that deliver any strategy, right? And we're all wired in an entirely different way. We bring to any role our own set of scripting, our own strengths and weaknesses, and I think a lot of leaders, as they're putting teams together, I think one of the mistakes that I notice people make is they kind of assume that everyone's going to be like them. And so the strength of the team is in the diversity of the experience base and the natural competency set. There are some core things that, there are some core competencies which are a fit with the culture of the business. And most of my clients have a high level of ambition and drive. If you didn't have a high level of ambition and drive, why would you try and, why would you be so uber focused on your sales process and your sales team? So, you know, that is likely to percolate down into the culture of the business, that ambition and drive. So, you know, there are some givens: ambition, a natural tendency to be a winner. There are those winner attributes. You know, they're strong attributes to have in any team. But then you've got to get the right people in the right roles. You know, there are some givens, but there are some competencies that are very role specific. If you're getting a sales guy, you want, you know, obviously you want high ambition and drive, but you want, depending on the role, relationship management. If you've got a very high hunter role, actually that relationship is going to get in the way. If you've got a farming role, that relationship, that tendency, that competency of managing relationships is more important. Different people have got different needs for approval. You know, a hunter role, if you've got a high need for approval in a hunter role, especially a lot of prospecting, that's danger, right? The ego investment of some people we've got a high need for approval. That's gonna get in their way. And so, you know, and I could go on and on about the different competencies, and I'm only talking about sales. You know, what about leadership? What about customer service? What about operations? We're all wired in a different way, and that's why we believe that we believe an important first step whenever we're working with a client is to do some pretty broad catchment assessment work. Really want to understand, are the right people in the otherwise, what are you going to do? You're going to invest training dollars into somebody who, you know, is in the wrong role. You know, I'm from Europe, as you can tell, and you know, I'm a soccer. My sport's soccer. Well, you know, Lionel Messi, probably one of the best footballers the world's ever seen, wouldn't have been a great goalkeeper, right? He's like 5 foot something, and you know, he wouldn't have been the world's best goalkeeper, that's for sure. And so you've got to get the right people in the right role, and then you've got to motivate and inspire and train and coach, and the journey never ends. So that's a long answer to a short question, Jeffrey.
And it sounds like the complete opposite of what a lot of businesses do, where they just throw the company handbook at the new employee or the veteran and say, "Hey, here's our new policies. Good luck. Read that when you have it." Second, that doesn't sound like it lines up with what you're saying.
Well, actually, that you step there into the next most important part about team development. First most important part about team development is getting the right people. Second, and this is so valuable, and it's so easily missed, so often missed, the onboarding program in any business, the onboarding program is really where the value starts to be created. And if there are any leaders listening to this, I think I would orient leaders to think about their team development in a pretty simple way. You know, what are the major roles and responsibilities of a leader, of a manager of a team, or a leader of a team, or a leader of an organization? Well, the roles, there are four major roles. As a leader, you are a supervisor, you're a trainer, you're a coach, and you're a mentor. But then you point those roles at various responsibilities, and if we can distill down into simple responsibilities, first responsibility speaks exactly to your first two questions: to attract, hire, recruit, onboard top talent. That's number one responsibility: attract, hire, recruit, onboard top talent. And if you miss the onboarding, you can forget about doing the other things right. And then you've got the other responsibilities, which are number two responsibility: understand those people and their motivational hooks, because we're all motivated, we're all driven in an entirely different way. Step number three is then articulate with clarity what's expected in language that speaks to the individual's motivational hooks, individuals, not the companies, but the individuals. And then step four is identify coaching opportunities. If you can do those four things, identify and capitalize on coaching opportunities, if you can say, I've got great talent, onboarded brilliant, I understand them and how to motivate them, I articulate with clarity what what's expected of them, and then I'm going to capitalize, identify and capitalize on training and coaching opportunities as they develop in role. The training isn't just for the new and the needy, right? Training is an ongoing journey for all members of the team, and so those four responsibilities are where the value creation is in leadership. I have a very simple view of the world, and then you get into strategy and all the other things. But that's about leadership and team development.
Sure. I mean, that very valuable information there, Carlos. How do companies normally approach sales training and professional development? You mentioned your way of doing it, but like, what are you finding companies are doing right now?
So the way in which a lot of companies make a mistake is they make the training for the new and the needy. There's a culture in the organization. If you're involved in training, it's because there's a problem or you're new. The new and the needy. It becomes almost, it gets to the point where if some companies have got the kind of culture there. If they're asked for, if somebody's invited into a sales training or any training, the first reaction is, hey, what did I do wrong? I mean, it's crazy. Now, then there are those other companies, that typically take a stride ahead of the pack, that increase market share. Those other companies, they make training in every role, not just sales. I mean, I get involved in sales and management and leadership training, but in all parts of their organization, they have an attitude which is continuous development of skill and an attitude and behavior. That's where value is created, and that's where growth comes from. Those companies typically stride forward. So there's, what do I normally see? New and the needy. What do we believe is the magic training formula? It's continuous, ongoing reinforcement training for the whole team. But we also believe, by the way, that everybody's in sales, because it isn't just this isn't just the guy who's carrying around a business card that says sales rep on it. We actually believe, especially in a medium-sized or smaller company, everybody's in sales. Everybody's in sales. I mean, what is a sale, right? A sale, a sale is any opportunity you have to help somebody to make a decision. A teacher sells, a parent sells. Any time you're helping somebody make a great decision, well, that's a sales role.
We talk about that a lot on our end of the ladder too, where we preach aligning your marketing and your sales departments. Make sure one hand knows what the other hand's doing, because you're both working towards the same goal. Yet a lot of times these departments never speak to each other, and that's a foundational error that we try and fix right off the bat as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Carlos, in what we're discussing, you mentioned that there are benefits to creating an ongoing professional development program for everybody in your company. What are some specific benefits that you have seen from instituting that structured sales training program for your staff? Why should I invest in that as a CEO or a decision maker at my company?
So if I may, I'll take a step back from that question and say, firstly, identify why is there a benefit from introducing a structured sales system. And once we've identified if that's a good idea, well, then you need to train people on systems, right? I mean, the training people on systems is well understood. I think the reason that a lot of companies run into a wall here is they don't think about their sales as a system. They think about their sales as an entirely kind of personal human, and it is a system that's driven by humans, but it should be a system. If you've got a system, a selling system, well then, the company's in control. You've got control. A system means you can save time. A system means that you can forecast and identify which opportunities are on track or off track. A system gives you the ability to duplicate positive results and things that went well. A system gives you an opportunity to debrief a sales call or an opportunity. Without a system, nobody's speaking the same language. And a system gives you the opportunity to recognize problems. So identifying that, okay, I get it, there's a system that we need. Well, then once you create the system, people need to be trained to use it. Otherwise, they will fall back into their behaviors and habits. And it'll turn into most people that we speak to, they haven't even got a sales system, and they haven't even got sales people. They've got order takers. And there's no judgment in that. I don't say that with any judgment because they've not been given a sales system to operate, So what are they going to do? They're going to take orders. An order comes in, an inbound lead comes in, and some close and some don't. And hey, what can I do? It's all about the leads. How many times do you hear that? It's not me, boss. It's these leads. It's like the scene from Glengarry Glen Ross, where they got the little bundle of golden leads, like it glows. These are the good leads. I mean, it's nonsense. So have a solid sales system. And then you've got people who can truly be sales people rather than order takers.
Absolutely.
But that actually, just realized that wasn't the question you asked. The question you asked was, why should they institute sales training? And that was a very long way of saying to grow and increase sales and margins, sell more stuff for more money more quickly.
Absolutely.
And to your larger point, Carlos, you're teaching a man to fish in a way instead of giving a fish. What you're saying, create the system, and that is going to lead to overall organizational success. We're just building that culture of we're constantly getting better. We're constantly learning new ways. We're not just sitting there and passing the buck if something goes wrong.
Yeah, that's right. And so many sales managers, they create learned helplessness within the team, right? So team member comes to sales manager, hey boss, help me close this one. And sales manager helps them close that one. What's he done? Just to your point, giving him a fish. How much more growth is there in teaching him to fish? Yeah. Rather than solving all the problems and creating. I've just come off a coaching call with one of my leaders, just a minute ago. And if he's listening to this, he'll know who I'm talking about. I've just come off that call saying, and I just said to him, you are creating learned helplessness within your team. You're not creating what you should be, which is autonomous people, self-sufficient, highly motivated. Those three things are in the gift of the sales manager or any leader in an organization. That's in the gift of the leader of the organization. And so many CEOs, they scratch their head and say, it's my guys, it's my guys. It's usually not. It's usually the leader. I have a sales manager that I work with, and he is very, whenever he promotes, he's a leader, sales leader. Whenever he promotes a sales manager, he has lunch with them. And he says to them, hey, listen, I want you to know that for 20 years I've been leading sales organizations. I have never fired a salesman. I only ever fire sales managers. That's the opening talk track for a new sales manager, because he believes there's no such thing as a bad salesman. There's only bad sales managers.
Amazing.
It's a simplified way to look at the world, but I kind of like it.
Sure. No, I mean, I think it makes sense just from my sales experience too. My next question is what are the common success factors for truly effective training programs? And then also, what are the outcomes?
The outcomes is easy, right?
Yeah.
More money, more margin, more team development, more higher engagement. And I think that those three magic cogs: autonomy, self-sufficiency, autonomy, high skill, highly motivated. That's the outcome. How do you get there? Well, first you design a solid sales system, because if you're training without a system, it's like trying to teach someone how to drive without letting them drive on a road. It's all like virtual reality. I mean, you need a system for someone to drive. Once you've designed that system, and we help a lot of people design those systems, those sales systems, how do you go from a lead? I mean, what's the difference between a marketing system and a sales system? You guys are all marketing. We believe that sales starts the first time a human being talks to another human being. On the first hello, Antonio always likes to say. Sales starts at the first hello. And so, what's the lead generation system? What's the lead development system? What's then the discovery process look like for a salesperson? And then how do you contract? How do you control that sale over the line? And then expand the relationship. They're all sales challenges. How do you design effective training for that? Well, I think there are 5 key areas. Number 1, reinforcement. People don't change overnight. They don't change. In fact, Sandler's first sales book, I may have a copy. No, I don't think I have. Not to hand. Is You Can't Teach a Kid to Ride a Bike at a Seminar. That's the title. You've seen that book, Rod, right?
Yeah.
That's the title of the book. You can't teach a kid to ride a bike at a seminar. So sales. I mean, I like it when I meet somebody. In my sales process, I always say to a client, hey, listen, sales training doesn't work. Impact training doesn't work. You can't change overnight. If it was easy, if it was that easy, I'd be 180 pounds and look like, you, Rod. But I'm not. I'm like massively overweight. And it isn't because I don't know what I shouldn't eat. It isn't because I don't know it. It's pretty simple, right? But it's not easy. Sales is simple, but it's not easy. So a reinforcement program rather than an impact is number 1 key factor. Impact seminars never work. Continuous reinforcement training always works. If it's backed up by number 2, the number 2 magic element, management. It can't happen in isolation from management. Management is the key to the lock. The sales manager, the coach a sales trainer gets somebody for an hour or 2 a week. The sales manager's got them for the other 50 hours. It's a sales management puzzle more than anything, which is why we almost exclusively train salespeople and their managers in separate programs. The manager gets manager program and is invited into the sales program, and the salespeople get their own separate program because it's a different set of processes. We teach a sales management program that fits alongside a sales program. One second. Executive, the third major element in my view is executive participation. Owner must, if it's a smaller company, owner must play. Must play. It isn't an option. It isn't endorsement. It isn't giving a thumbs up from the sides. Hey, you guys go for it. If owner doesn't play, or if the senior leader, the CEO, doesn't participate, way deeper than endorsement, it's likely to fail. Because then you know why? That in any organization, there are rules, guidelines, and laws. If you don't make the new sales process the law, it's all going to spin off track. So it has to become the law. Because people, we've just identified, the hardest thing in the world to do is human behavioral change. And without senior leader participation, it ain't going to go anywhere. Fourth element is collect data. Be very data driven, have pre-data and post-data on conversion rates, close rates, margins, activity, you know, how many dials, how many networkers, how many conversations, a lot of data. Data is very powerful to find what's working, what's not working, who's doing the right things where. And then the final piece, the fifth piece is don't just look at it in isolation. Training. You train that. We believe there are three major elements to success: behavior, attitude, and technique. You coach attitude, you manage behaviors, you train skill, train technique. So you're only hitting, you know, in that three-legged stool, which is the most important leg. They're all important in a three-legged stool. So it isn't all about training the skill, the technique part. That has to go with a coach, manager as coach, which is why we train our managers to be coaches, and behavior, the supervisory part, manage behaviors. Without behavior, you can have all the great technique in the world, all the great attitude in the world. I could see myself as a long distance runner, great attitude, I believe. Tony Robbins, I walk across hot coals, I believe. I might even then have great education on nutrition, and I might know all the technique about how to run, but until I actually pull some sneakers on and run around a little bit, the behavior part, it's for nothing. It's not real. So you've got to manage supervised behaviors too. That's that was a very long answer to your question.
Oh, there's great information in there, Carlos. And you know, it comes back to, I think, one of the most important things that you said. You have to reinforce, you know, what's going in by doing, you know, and if you look back even into antiquity, you know, there was always this guiding principle that humans learn by doing. We have to put it into practice. We can't just hear it, because like you said, if the behavior part doesn't occur, it's just knowledge that, you know, dumps into our ears and swizzles around in our brain and maybe stays there for a little bit, but it doesn't improve. It doesn't get better.
I mean, it's not just humans, it's all animals, right? You know, a little baby bird, what does mummy bird do at one point when they think baby bird's strong enough? Throws her out of the nest. Throw the baby out the nest. She'll soon figure out how to fly when you throw them out the nest. You don't learn to fly sat in the nest. You got to be thrown out the nest.
You're talking about how I learned to swim now at this point, Carlos.
That's exactly how I learned to swim too. And exactly how I taught my kids to swim. But
Yeah,
jump in if there was a problem. Yeah,
sure. Supervised practice is always the way to go.
That's right.
Carlos, if I'm listening to this, then I'm a business owner, maybe I'm a decision maker at my company. You know, we try and get down to practical applications of what we talk about on the show. You know, getting down to brass tacks. Where would you start if you were one of these individuals and you're seeing the importance of putting a professional sales training program into play, an ongoing one, a structured one? What's the next step for me if I want to actually start making this happen?
Oh, well, the first thing of course, I'm going to tell you to do is pick up the phone and call me or shoot me an email. That's the right first step. But, it's worth recognizing a couple of important things because everybody wants to sell more, right? Oh, I want to sell. Nobody ever says to me, Carlos, we want to sell about the same this year as we sold last year. Everybody wants to sell more. The question is how hard, how much do you want it? Because it is a journey. And let me tell you, if you work with us and anybody who's credible in this field, because it is so highly skilled, it is such a rarefied ability to be able to change a company's sales team and sales process and result, because it creates so much value. Let me tell you, we are hideously expensive. I mean, heart attack expensive. So if somebody's talking to me, they're usually telling me one of three things. Either one, I've got a problem that needs to be fixed yesterday. I'm done with this. I've got a problem in management, or I've got a problem in the sales team, or we're not hiring the right people, or whatever it is. Yesterday is my time frame. Or they're telling me, number two, we are not where we need to be, and I'm done with it. The numbers are not where they need to be. And then sometimes they tell me, Carlos, we're trending down, and this can't survive. We really need to be trending up again. Now, sometimes that's a problem, right? Because sometimes people call me when they're up to their neck in quicksand, and there's nothing I can do. You need to be up to your knees in quicksand to get my help. If you're up to your neck, it looks like you're going to get swallowed up by the quicksand. So listen, there isn't only us in the world. I mean, there are some. I would go to a reputable a company that's done it a lot, that's helped a lot of people, and can show evidence and experience. Changing people is hard, and so I would definitely look to work with an organization that's done it many, many times over. This isn't just, if you're not prepared to take it that seriously, in all honesty, save your money as a business owner. If any business owners are watching this, shoot me an email. If you haven't got a big funds, I'll just buy a book.
Yeah,
some books, and I'll tell you the good ones. And then there are some bad ones, but there are some great ones. Buy a book for everyone and make everyone read it, and then get them all together once a month and give them the learnings. That's pretty cool to do. It's going to be a much longer journey, but that's all right. It's the needs of some companies have got a need like that. That's all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
The thing I hear you saying, Carlos, overall is just start.
Yeah.
Start. It ain't going to fix itself, right? It isn't. It's like, if you've got a cholesterol problem, it ain't going to fix itself. You have to, don't be an ostrich. Look at it in the eye, and decide, make a decision that this isn't going to survive another year, that this is important enough to fix. Yeah.
Sure. Carlos, how about, I have experience with Sandler. I went through your program. I loved it. So I understand some of the different facets. And you mentioned it a little earlier. You mentioned that you had one for managers, one for salespeople, maybe even for an executive. Can you give us a little insight about the specifics of those programs that you have available?
Yeah, sure. So with our sales program is we have what we call public clients, which is the program you were in, Rod. Yep. Which is where leaders, managers, and salespeople from different industries and different companies all come together and work through our curriculum and our role playing. And I actually believe that is our most powerful program. I think it is so powerful. If I'm teaching, for example, if I'm training that particular day on, I don't know, a particular closing technique, or maybe how to speak about money, how to do a budget question or whatever, to have an insurance guy sat next to a guy who sells capital goods, sat next to a guy who's a lawyer, having these different disciplines all together and hearing how different industries are manifesting the techniques, that is extraordinarily powerful because it really does ram it home. So I believe that's our most powerful. So we have these public programs. Our sales program, we have a sales mastery program, which our clients will typically stay with us for, just years and years and years. They meet every week. We role play. We We do coaching. We learn and master all these techniques. So that's a public program. Our sales mastery program actually has a primer program that we run, because if we were going to put a novice in with some of the guys who've been with us for 6 years, it's going to be a misfit. People are going to be swamped with new language, new system, new philosophies. And so we have a primer program that runs, and then that graduates into our mastery program. I mean, we're very fortunate. I think I have around 700 to 800 learners right now, within, probably around 70 companies that I support. We have the public program, but we also have private programs. We've got we've magnetized an awful lot of clients to us over the years, and so we're very fortunate. We've got many very big companies and medium-sized companies that are a very big team. Yesterday, was a training day for one of our big multinationals, where we had a good example. This is a private client. They're a big they're not construction. They're an industrial products company, private equity backed. And on a Tuesday, I do a management session with them. So I get globally all the managers together, and we learn a management system. And then on Thursdays, once a month, we do the sales guys, but we have to kind of slice it up. So I do a session at 6 a.m. for the Europeans. I then do a session at 12 for the Americans, my time. And then my colleague in Sao Paulo does a session for the Brazilian team in Portuguese. And then my colleague does a 10:30 at night session for the Asia team. So we've broken them into four groups. So we have these private clients. That's an example of how we'd structure a private client assignment, with training managers, training salespeople. And then we have a beautiful online environment where we bring video tips and coaching and curriculum and development through the online system too. So we create a very rich development environment. Instructor-led training is usually a cornerstone, but we have virtual coaching, face-to-face coaching, we have audio, video resources that we bring them. And so we create this rich development environment for people.
Awesome.
Now, Carlos, we always
your question, but it's okay. Go ahead.
And we'll make sure to discuss a little bit more about how listeners can connect with you and Absolute Sales Development to be able to follow up if they have seen the light, during this episode about how important it is to institute this type of program. But Carlos, before we get to that point, there's one question I want to ask you. We like to ask this for our guests when they come on. We're a futuristic show. We have a Martian for our logo. We talk about what's coming down the pipe tomorrow. In your mind and in your experience, and if you had the ability to see the future and predict it, where do you think the future of selling is going? What's going to be tomorrow's way to sell products, or tomorrow's method to sell?
Okay, it depends whether you mean tomorrow, or if you mean in 20, 30 years time tomorrow. I'm gonna give you a real almost it's almost too casual, this an answer. I don't think much changes, not in the near term. I think people buy from people. I think, it's been very well proven that at a certain trigger point, I think it's around $1,200, $1,500, there's a point when a person needs a salesperson to help them make a great decision. And I think that's going to be around for a long, long time. I think that's going to be around for a long time. Now, let's get a little smarter about it. I think that channels are going to become much more important. I think channel relationships, I think the latest study from Forrester said something like, I don't know, I'm going to guess, it's like 7 out of every $8 that is spent in the next 20 years is going to be through a channel. And I might even have the date wrong. It might even be nearer than that. So channel management, channel partnerships, I think those become much, and being a channel salesperson, by the way, is probably one of the hardest jobs in sales. The hardest job in sales, by the way, is first line sales manager. Second hardest job in sales is channel lead. And I think AI is going to be, if I was going to look at it, it's so incredible what's happening with AI at the moment and VR, and augmented reality. I think those are a feature in 10 years' time, but I can't ever believe somebody's ever going to buy legal services, for example, off a computer. I don't. I think they need somebody. I think they need a person to help them make a great decision. I hope so.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. And Carlos, how can everyone connect with you? What's the best way to reach you?
Carlos.garrido@sandler.com is cool. That's CARLOS.GARRIDO @sandler.com. And Sandler's spelt like Adam Sandler. My a good number to catch me on is 786-547-9610. And also just connect with me on LinkedIn. Hey, there aren't many Carlos Garridos at Sandler. So, just do a LinkedIn search for me. I'm based out of Miami. I have a nice LinkedIn community. We bring a lot of value to our LinkedIn community just through posts and stuff. So that might be cool. And of course, if you're listening to this podcast and if there's anyone in your world that you think would value a conversation with me, then please reach out and introduce me to somebody you feel we might be able to help. That, Rod, you may remember, is the way to ask for a referral.
Yes. Fantastic.
Thank you.
And to our listeners, we'll make sure to include all this contact information in the show notes so you can just look right there and take that next step, which we think is so important. Carlos, overall, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your insight and your wisdom with us.
Thank you. Thank you, Rod. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Absolutely. Thank you.